So I'm here with Jennifer Sertl, Agility 3R, leadership, complexity, and all manners of things that we're going to talk about. Good afternoon, Jennifer.
Hi, Peter. It's so nice to be here with you.
And a pleasure for me to actually meet someone who's worked deeply around the themes of the 3Rs, resilience, and other things. So I want to begin at the beginning. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your background of how you came to do this.
Absolutely. So just because it's meaningful to me, I'll share with you that my mother is mentally ill and has schizophrenia. And my coping mechanism was to study ways of being and ways of knowing. So when I chose a major in college, I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder and started studying existential philosophy and philosophy in general. I wasn't looking for a job or a career. I simply was trying to make sense of the fact that my mother had a mental model, and I would often visit other people in the hospital with her. And as a very young child, learned that reality wasn't fixed, that different people had different perspectives. And the safest way for me to feel sane actually was to study how people belong and what belonging means. I also was an academic advisor in college. And it's kind of funny talking about it right now because I actually have an 18-year-old who is just now a freshman at Michigan State. And I'm compassionate of how I had no idea what I was going to be studying, and that what I ended up studying ended up helping me in my career for 20 years. I think in the age of social media, companies are wanting psychological presence in people's minds. What a brand is really a brain tattoo. And
I love the idea of a brain tattoo.
Truly is, you know. And so it really was kind of a happy accident that I studied something as a 18, 19-year-old that ended up really being very significant in 21st century business and helping individuals and companies carve out their identity and ensure that at a behavioral level that they're actually able to keep promises that they're making and help support what I'll call mind share. I could go on, but I know that we've got limited time, but I hope that's an interesting introduction.
That is a fascinating, it's one that I resonate with briefly because I have a mother-in-law who currently has dementia and various other associated conditions. And we do need ways of making sense of that for ourselves. And of course, if we get to the crazy world of organizations, sense making in a complex world is incredibly important, isn't it?
It really is. It really is.
So you run a company called Agility 3R, and it has, surprisingly, 3 Rs: resilience, responsiveness, and the thing that I often do that nobody realizes is reflection. I mean, can you take us through why they really matter in the current age, in an age of complexity and sort of ambiguity?
Yeah, what's fascinating is that the company really began in 2007, and I had no idea that agility software and the IT use of agility as a mental model was exploding. I really think that it was a matter of what's relevant is relevant. And I was thinking, how can I help individuals and organizations with something that would both transcend the economy and transcend technology? And as I thought, the answer was I can help individuals be more agile. And as I went to define what is agile, it really was that systems that are agile are resilient in that they are able to learn from failure and leverage failure. They're responsive in that they're able to see and scan and see and scan for accuracy. And that would be the responsiveness. And then finally, that they were reflective, that there was always a design in place that would allow for sense making and pattern recognition. And since 2007, either as an individual or organizations, I've been really helping them, you know, be more resilient, be more responsive, and be more reflective. And you can actually create very sophisticated designs on how to enable those things more. And so I would say it's kind of a happy accident that it ended up being relevant and that the terminology has many different shapes and forms. And now what's exciting, reality is then mirrored by Forbes and Harvard Business Review. You know, like they're kind of behind, but they're also great validators. And what you'll be seeing now is you'll be seeing articles on resilience. You'll be seeing articles on, you know, if you want to kill the complexity, you know, if you want to scale your company, kill the complexity and be more agile. So we were in the field, as you know too, Peter, because you're often ahead of curves.
By accident in my case also, but we could say skillful intuition.
Say they can validate it.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on.
You could go on. I think we may have lost you a little bit there, but we're good again now. So we may have to just accept that we lost 10 seconds there.
Okay.
Coming back to resilience, I mean, I read recently that the lifetimes of companies have dramatically reduced in the last few years, from about 50 plus to about 15 years is the average life of a Fortune 500 company. So there must be a real, I guess, imperative on becoming resilient if the half-life of a company is dwindling. I mean, can you say anything about that?
Yeah, I think what's happening is that structures. If you think of a company is really a living organism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the things are changing so much that the idea of creating a structure that's static, it's just going to be irrelevant. If a company designs itself to be virtual and that it ends up being really clear on what it's the best at, and more importantly, who it best serves, then so long as the needs of the people it's serving shifts, they'll be relevant enough to shift with that. And so I think it's more amoeba-like. There's people writing books about holacracy and hierarchy. And so there's a lot, I think, a lot more diversity in the business structures. You know, we still have IBM, we still have companies that are going to be very traditional, but more and more, there are more multinational companies. There are more freelance workers in companies. Companies are now using co-working spaces instead of having physical spaces. So the employee is more like businesses used to grow and scale by virtue of design, and now they're growing and scale by way of the individuals that they're hiring.
And in some cases, collaboration, rather than having their organization bounded by the walls, the walls are porous, and they're collaborating with people outside to get those talents in as well, aren't they?
Absolutely. In fact, you know, one of the neatest examples of that is Swift banking. And, you know, believe it or not, it's really fun to track the future of money and the future of banking, because people will always need banking, but they will not need banks. And a very provocative company, Swift, like every time you get an international payment, you get a Swift code. That company actually has a division of R&D called InnoTribe. And all InnoTribe's role is to actually travel around the world and meet interesting people and bring ideas into the company. Mm-hmm. And so their training and development is actually sourced outside. There's like internal scouts that are bringing information in. And in terms of traditional structures, that's the most interesting model that I've seen in how to, it's kind of like the castle and the sandbox, right? Is it, how do you have a sandbox in your castle? And I think I invite more organizations to, instead of having an R&D division, that they actually begin to have scouts that go scout and bring back information. Almost the way that we were hunters and gatherers way back in the caveman days. And do we
have to wear the loincloths?
Well, I live in Rochester, New York, and I would like a seasonal opportunity to only have to wear the cloths 3 months out of the year, if I may.
By the way, I'm 6 miles away from Rochester in the UK, so.
Oh, this is Rochester to Rochester connection. I love it.
Yeah, okay.
That's lovely.
So reflection, you work in some great companies. I work in some sort of busy companies, and they never quite articulate this, but if they're being very honest, they say, reflection, Peter, it takes a long time. We'd just rather get on with the next thing. I mean, how do you respond to, you know, top companies that say we're really busy and, you know, this reflection stuff, laying down and thinking about things, we haven't got time?
Well, I think I had a luxury of working with a manufacturing company for 6 years very deeply. And what I loved about it was that they took good care of their CNC machine. It was a machine that cut glass. And it made me think about this transition. Manufacturing companies have great skill around value creation and waste and capacity planning. Service-based businesses don't do that so well. So my recommendation is that service-based businesses think that each individual is a unit of brilliance. And each unit of brilliance has 200 watts or joules a month to deploy. And then the idea is that we actually create 18-month calendars and design for 90 days where we reverse engineer how much brilliance is going towards execution, how much brilliance is going towards maintaining relationships with vendors and clients, how much units is going into actually developing the team and coaching and all of that, how much units are being dedicated to strategy. And then we can actually do some real capacity planning around, you know, do you have an hour a month where you can actually design and plan? You know what? I don't want to trust you with anything in my life if you can't carve out an hour as an executive to actually think and design your own capacity, right? And coaching, you know, nothing happens without touching and either kicking or kissing, and a nice frequency and mix between kiss and kiss and kiss and kick. But you have to reverse engineer how many direct reports do you have. If they're going to take the time in problem resolution and burning fires. But if you design in regular touches, then your actual throughput, meaning the way in which you can actually design to be swift in decision making and do the work, if you design in capacity to make sure that there's buffers inside, you'll be more reliable. I don't understand why it's so hard for very smart people to design in these buffers.
Indeed. Now you have before I move on to strategy, leadership, and soul, you have this term macro seduction. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I think so part of it comes from, I really had to work hard on ensuring that I was sane, because I came from a family where there was either perfection or madness. And so I have to say that I'm probably hyper aware, and claiming my voice has been a journey as a young woman, and also as a, you know, when you're in a situation with a mentally ill parent, you don't really have an ego. Your ego responds to their ego. And then as you become an adult, you realize that you have delayed individuation. So I will say, as a 46-year-old delayed individuation person, that I've been very, very cautious around how many things are trying to take me away from my voice. And so in the community, we know that businesses are hiring neuroscientists and anthropologists to help them sell market share. They're not using social anthropology for leadership. They're using it for market share, okay? We know that food companies use 3,000 calories a day to do their pro forma, okay? We know that to be healthy, you need only between 1,800 and 2,000 calories a day, right? So what we know is that there's a marketing strategy to make you fat. There's a marketing strategy to make you in debt. And there's a marketing strategy to make you feel that you're incompetent. And so if you don't know who you are and design protection around your life, what your values are, who your friends are, then it's really possible for you to be living somebody else's life and actually putting yourself in actual harm.
I see this all the time, not necessarily with senior people in organizations, but on the floor of society with musicians who are dragged around by other people's strategies. And often, I mean, leaders need not to have a big ego, but the being centered, I suppose, is the word I would choose. It's so important for people if they're not going to be led, you know, into bad places by other people's marketing strategies, if you will, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that the companies, and I don't know how well this model can, and it kind of leads into strategy, leadership, and the soul. So I'm going to be totally capitalistic here and say it isn't about being nice and thoughtful, because I know that if you're a business owner or running a company, your goal is market share. But here's the deal. Your competitive advantage is the accuracy in which you scan the macro and serve the needs of your clients. Would you agree with that?
Well, absolutely. I met Tom Peters some years back, and someone asked him a question: is it better to maximize shareholder value or the staff? He said, well, there's no question. He says, if you look after the staff, everything else is taken care of.
Yes. Okay. So he's probably one of the biggest, most validated, relevant voices here. And so the issue is this: if you really believe that your competitive advantage is the accuracy in which you scan and the way you make decisions, then your employees have to be healthy. Yeah. Because they are sensory systems. They're responding at a micro level. They're responding to executing their job that you've hired them to do. And they're also building relationships and doing little DNA strands of your brand. And so this is what I love about the transparency that's happening now because of social, is that wise companies are made of people that have really good sensory systems. And I put pressure on individuals to be healthy and make sure that they're working in organizations that they feel are aligned with their values. And then companies need to realize you can't track everyone's Facebook page, everyone's Twitter, that it would behoove you as a company to get really clear on what you're the best at and make sure you hire for filter, and not hire for skill, but hire for filter. And I would look forward to doing more of this work because it still is a hard sell and it seems so self-evident to me.
You know what I really like about what you do? It's MBA thinking, you've got strategy, leadership, and then you've got James Brown, soul.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
That isn't a word that I studied in MBA, and the word soul, I could almost guarantee it didn't occur within 3 years of the course at all. Yeah. Although it was a good MBA, the word soul wasn't used, and executives are frightened of it. But just decode a little bit about why soul is a completely business-friendly word for any wise business.
Yeah, so it was hard to find a publisher. I'm so thankful that Triarchy Press did publish our work. My second favorite publishing company is Barrett Kohler in San Francisco. Both of these organizations do systems thinking, and I just think that, thankfully I got published. I look at soul as essence. Mm-hmm. Is that you have to think about your DNA strand. And so when I'm working with individuals, I will ask them to identify 3 themes that they believe their life tells the story about. And if they tell me they don't have the 3 themes, I say, who are 18 people that you hope you could meet in your lifetime or that you wished you could have met in your lifetime? So if I can get people to identify a list of 18 individuals, there usually is a pattern that will emerge. And I'll say that is the soul, is that we value certain things, and the sooner that we can name them and claim them, the more we can use them as a sword to protect ourselves. So when I think of soul, it really is the DNA strand of the individual. And then when I do competitive intelligence with companies, it really is. So for instance, one company, it would be innovation, know-how, and collaboration. That's their soul. That's how they hire and fire people. It's a different way to frame a core competency model with a little bit more resonance. That this has to be a litmus test around what you let in and what you take out. And ultimately resonance. Why I love your work, Peter, so much is that you use music and leadership. And people that have dementia and people that have mental, no matter what, they can always remember the song.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you help fine-tune at a resonant level people's identities and affinities. And you do it your way and I do it mine. But at the end of the day, we're even talking because we met and there was a kinship. There was a mutual respect, and it's almost like, oh my God, you're living in Rochester, I'm living in Rochester, and we're both friends of Nadine Hack, and we both want to make global impact through authentic use of our life and our voice. Yours through yours in music, and mine through mine in behavioral models.
The music thing is interesting because I'm quite a big fan of Prince. Not a fanatic, but quite a big fan. And there are some people think he's mad, of course, because he's turned down Warner Brothers because he felt they were ripping him off. But he's on the record of saying, let the baker make the bread. Why do we need this great big industry? And I think what he's tried to do through his life is to find his essence and his soul, and he doesn't want to, have that, perturbed in any way by people. I think there are other views about Prince because, he can be sometimes a little bit prickly and sort of, perhaps precious. But I think he's actually an incredibly smart, ethical business person because he doesn't want, the music industry to sort of distort his work and, put it out in any other way than he intended. Now, he'd never get a job probably in a corporate company in the accounting department because of that. But nonetheless, that is authenticity, isn't it? You have to stay to your principles. Not all music is imbued with authenticity, but I think music is is about sort of finding your essence, and there are artists around the world that probably sort of subscribe to that authenticity thing totally. So I think there is some sort of link there. I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to pass it back to you and talk about you. You mentioned orchestra conductors and that, and I think it's possible to lead without having someone with a baton. So I mean, can you just contrast for me briefly what you mean by that?
Well, I have to say, so on my Elite 18, and I never have people do an exercise that I don't also live by and walk by. One of my Elite 18 is Benjamin Zander, who at one point was the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic. And he really, I think, I should let the conductors speak for the conductors, but as a metaphor, the idea of allowing people and helping people play and knowing when to ask a person to play and when a person to be silent, but knowing that your ability to leverage the collective is what makes the music. Your ability to leverage the collective brilliance of your company is your profit. It's a beautiful metaphor. I think it's an accurate metaphor.
Yeah, I now you've nailed it for me, because when we talk about conductors, there is this thing. But Ben Zander doesn't really just work through his hands. A lot of his work is done in beforehand by preparing the orchestra to play beautifully. Anyway, of course, in an orchestra, there is at some level a central figure that knows all the sheet music and does that. That is not the whole job of leadership at all, is it? He talks a lot about getting down with the individual teams and what have you. And of course, in jazz, it's also not true there is no conductor. It's not true to say there is no conductor. It's just that the conductors are distributed, and you have to. And instead of this, people are looking at each other a bit more.
Right.
There are conductors in all forms of music, but they don't always have a baton. And all the linking point is they get the team to really want to play together.
Right. I think, we could actually have a whole call on this, because I think that I'm always of the mindset that the leader has to design true north and get out of the way on the how. I don't think we have enough leaders that are clear. And I think we have leaders that change based on we see this, let's go here. No, what's true north, man? And we'll get there. When I know of improv, in that, like Philip Shepard is a cellist, and he's from your country. And I've met him, and I've had a weekend with him and a group of lovely people, and they were jamming out. And what I noticed, people that have self-confidence can jam. People that are insecure can't jam. They either have to play or they have to lead. And I think that companies that hire talent and know there's a time to lead and a time to follow will make great music, will make great profit.
Absolutely. And Charles Handy over here, Professor Charles Handy, is also in complete alliance with you when he says that great leaders get the destination clear for people and then get that out of the way on the journey. And on that note, because I think we want to give YouTube people a chance to watch some other videos this evening, I'm going to say that we'll conclude this thing. But I would love to have a conversation with you about some of the specifics of your 20 layers on your website and other things, and not least we might drift back to Benjamin Zander, improvisation, jazz, rock and roll, and all the rest of it. But before we go, my reflection on that is that you've got a very clear model of getting stuff, but it's actually tremendously flexible in terms of how it would apply to a particular organization. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. What I have is a framework that's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And the framework isn't about the content. The content is adaptable. The framework is not. And that's where I'll say, you know what? I'm a chef. I'm not a sous chef. I can't collaborate, because what I know is that I know how to drive this particular frame with levels of variety and diversity. But I am committed to, this is the frame that I'm best to lead. It isn't the best frame. It's the frame that I'm the best to lead.
Absolutely. So that puts you in the authentic spot as well.
Yes. Yes.
How do we get in touch with you, Jennifer?
Really, I am on Twitter all the time as @Jennifer Sertl, and my website is agility3r.com. And I love that you've got such a beautiful community of leaders that I am excited to continue to weave you in. And I really believe that, from Richard Branson to an executive coach in Rochester, New York, I think what I love about you is that you have every layer of relevance, and you're just trying to make beautiful music with all these, I guess I was trying to think of a really neat metaphor, but I'm just playing my mind.
Play on. So the other thing you do is you work for the Huffington Post from time to time, don't you?
I do. And actually, I wrote familiarity can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a very important post, because we tend to feel safer in familiarity. And if there's any shifts in the environment, our comfort will keep us from actually being accurate. And so to me, if you do go and see that post, I think familiarity can be dangerous is probably the most useful. And I can certainly, I can actually think about doing some sort of post on the metaphor of music and leadership. So there's certainly some collaboration that you and I can do, Peter, that I look forward to.
I'd love to do a collaboration, although not tonight, because I'm just in a couple of hours off to Rochester in the UK, I have to say, to play some jazz.
Oh, that's great.
I'm collaborating with others. I'm
so excited, because not only do I want to meet you, but I want to have a beer in a pub and listen to you jam at some.
We'll get this together under the purple rain in Rochester, New York. But for now, I'm going to say thank you so much, Jennifer. That's been very illuminating, inspiring, and really informative, which is the 3 I's, I think, rather than the 3 R's. But thank you so much for your time.
All the best. I wish you the best, and have a great time tonight. See you later.
Okay.
Bye.